Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. We're going to open up with a work session, and we're going to talk about parking rates. Mr. Dykey.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm going to tell you that I had a meeting today at 4 p.m. And that 4 p.m. meeting did not bode well for me. There's some representatives here who were at that meeting. Thank you guys for coming in. Appreciate it. And I would like to offer the opportunity for one or two of them to say something so that we know where that mindset is.
Can I ask some questions first, Bob?
Sure.
Just out of curiosity, I see on the chart that was passed out, it talks about 100 passes for the university. How did we come up with 100?
That was the assumption that when we went from $40 a semester, when 150, possibly 200 students were buying deck permits, that would drop to probably at least 100. It's just an assumption. It's just a
Okay,
number.
so they're about 150 now, is that?
There used to be.
Mark
when
said
they-
there's like 147.
Okay.
Somewhere around
No,
150 permits, right.
that's fine. I'm just
So
trying to get
we
a
figured if
handle
the
on-
rate went up, that some would not buy the monthly permits. So I used 100 as a.
No,
as a
no
number.
problem. That's fine, Eric. I'm just curious where the
Sure.
figures are coming from.
Sure.
Twofold, and this may be better for Mark, and if you know the answer, you can answer. Otherwise, Mark, when he gets up here, will tell us it.
Sure.
Are all these students that are buying passes, are any of them just night students?
Are they what?
Any night students, or are these
I have-
all daytime students?
I have no idea which ones are night students and which are day students.
And that would be one
We
question.
just knew they were USMH students
No,
because
no.
they were the ones receiving the rate.
I fully understand that.
Okay.
And those are my two questions I have big time right now.
Okay. Now, I will say that Eric has been working diligently to try to find some semblance of a compromise between the University of Maryland and the businesses who inhabit downtown and add to our economy. Again, today's meeting didn't turn out as I had hopefully envisioned anyway. So I'm going to ask BJ to come up and speak for a minute and what his concerns are, and then probably Don and then Mark.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Council, thank you for your time. I know that a lot of people, including city staff, Eric and others, have been working on this over the past probably 30 to 60 days diligently. When you look at the original proposal that was approved in June, the implications on that to my particular business were significant, and they still are, because that's what sits in place. The increase in cost is approximately a 30% number, which takes the parking cost alone, based on the square footage that I occupy on the square corner in the downtown core of the city, approximately $6 per square foot, just for the parking cost. It actually represents, that increase that was approved in June represents about 45% of the total cost for me to occupy that space in downtown. Prior to that, the parking rate that we were actually billed for in relation to June, the parking cost, $4.10 per square foot. I occupy 48 spaces. I have 48 employees that are in there every day, providing in business suits, et cetera, throughout the downtown on a daily basis. With those 48 spaces, our cost in June, and actually the numbers that you have in front of you that show a $9,000 cost related to Middletown Valley Bank, and then $6,000 down below, I believe that they are not completely accurate. Our actual June bill was, in a combined fashion, about $1,980 for the month. The increase as proposed that the mayor has put forward for the session this evening takes that cost increase from $1,980 a month to $2,400 a month. When you do the math on that, that takes my per square foot parking cost alone to $4.95 up from $4.10. It's an 85-cent increase. That hits in 2020. We have a business decision to make. That has been discussed with us, and I would agree with that. I would tell you that if you take and you looked at market rents in the downtown corridor for buildings similar or comparable, and you add a $5 parking cost on top of the CAM fees that are normal to a tenant to occupy a space, you start to price yourself into a market that becomes comparable outside of the downtown corridor. That includes parking. That does not generate the type of cost related to the parking, nor other issues and creations that can be done with the inefficiencies that go with the transportation and the walking to and from the job site. Parking can actually be done on site. Many of you know we're leasing a facility further down the street. I can tell you that $5 parking cost is not added on to that rate as to what we are leasing for. That location that we have leased has approximately 85 parking spaces. I'm going to occupy 40 of them the day that I move in, which will be sometime in early 2019. And I'm faced with the decision to say, do we evaluate the future of our downtown investment and being on the square corner with the parking cost that gets added with that? These are things that the mayor certainly referenced a 4 o'clock meeting. What I see being in the deck every day, and if I go back to my economics days and say simple supply and demand, if demand is there, price goes up. If demand is not there, price goes down. So to make this price change at a time when the demand is not there, and if you visit the decks throughout the day, regardless of the time, you will see many empty spaces within the university deck throughout the multiple floors, as well as the majority of the top floor being completely empty. So I would understand if the downtown parking and the demand were there to say, we need the parking spaces, so either pay more or give them up. What I don't understand is when the demand is not there at this point in time, why that price changes. So I asked the mayor at 4 o'clock today, what is the vision for the city? Forget about the specifics to parking, but where do we want to go with the city in the future as a whole? If we want to create the vibrant economic city with businesses that operate downtown, you must find ways to promote and move it forward and reduce the inhibitors that can get in the way. And those are the challenges that we face. I see parking today as an inhibitor. Now, we can certainly go through, I understand and comprehend budgets and wanting to make sure that things are operated in an efficient way that do not operate at a deficit, certainly in the city's budgetary concerns. I would certainly like to take a dissertation on the overall expense side that's related directly to parking, to understand the allocation of those expenses and how it works, and would certainly be willing to entertain that conversation to see if that we are truly at a situation today where the parking revenue does cover the parking cost. Certainly in my very quick review of it, I think that there's opportunity to open and have that discussion. I'm not sure that I see the parking situation increasing being a direct revenue increase. What I think has to be taken into consideration is that there could be change in the current parking usage, that you can certainly increase revenue, but the question you have to ask yourself, will you decrease users? So those would be my comments. I thank the council and the mayor and certainly the staff for their time and for their consideration with this. I have great envy, as I've expressed to many of you, for what you do, what you're looking to do for this community, and the challenges that you face. Thank you.
Don?
Appreciate you all taking the time to be in here. Probably a lot of things you'd rather be doing. In my opinion, I don't think we have a shortfall now in our expenses. I mean, look, I think we're somewhere around $100,000 profitable right now. The decks are not near full, and my opinion, again, the city must provide a service, and the city provides services. Parking is one of them. I don't think the city ought to be trying to accumulate money for the future. Let's worry about that when we need another deck. Now, we went through the numbers some. I'm sure we don't have all the exact right ones. And timing is terrible. The town's in a mess right now. It's a good mess, I think. I mean, we're seeing construction. We're seeing a lot of activity. I think people are going to be more reluctant to come downtown with everything that's going on. And I think the parking is, well, like I said, it's part of our vision, and it's part of our investment in the future. And I appreciate any consideration, any meeting or anything that we could do to move this along. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Mark?
We all certainly appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and to present our point of view. Most of you are familiar with the University System of Maryland in Hagerstown. We have approximately 500 students. To answer the question previously asked, yes, last spring we had 147 parking permits. The fall before that, it was a greater number. I certainly understand why Eric is saying that the expectation would be that we would have probably no more than 100 sold this fall. I think that's probably an optimistic number, but let's not argue about that number. The issue is that because of the cost, students will not be able to afford what originally was a 500% increase, going from $40.70 for the semester to $62 a month. And then with the latest proposal, taking that down to $40 a month. Let me give the $40 a month a little bit of perspective. That would be for the 4 months of the fall semester, that'd be $160. Frostburg's parking is free, except for a $40 one-time fee. Salisbury, between $90 and $110, again for 6 months. Shady Grove, which is the other regional higher education center in Rockville, $109, again for 6 months. And Towson and College Park are both relatively comparable to what this $160 charge to Hagerstown people would be. Towson, $178, College Park, $157. Again, this is for 6 months and not for 4 months. So I simply want to ask, is it a reasonable charge for Hagerstown to charge our students the same amount as the most expensive parking areas in the state of Maryland? The other piece that I would like to bring up is the timing of the change. The vote was cast on June 26 to be effective July 1. This is our first week of school for the fall semester. Students are coming in yesterday and today confronted with the idea that they're going to have to deal with a parking situation that was very different than last year. Yes, some of them will be able to go down to the center lot and park there for free. And we're expecting that a number of our students will do that. The daytime students, however, are posed with a very different situation. We have roughly, and this is a rough number because we really don't know, but because our enrollment in terms of head count is now roughly half daytime and half evening students, simply applying that metric alone to the number of parking permits would say that of the 147 permits, roughly half of them are day and half of them are evening. That may not be true, but at least I think it's a reasonable presumption in the absence of any other information. So we're going to have, using Eric's number, if we look at somewhere between 50 and more than 50 students that have chosen, because of cost, not to buy a garage ticket. They're going in the daytime. They're not going to be parking in the center lot unless they come at 6:30 in the morning to get a spot. They're going to start circling our streets. And so we're going to look out the window at 7:45 in the morning, and we're going to see round and round and round, we're going to see students looking for parking spaces. And they probably will, over time, adjust their schedule so they come at 7:30 or 7:15 in order to find the space, or maybe even to find a cheaper space in the center lot. But all of this is simply creating a level of difficulty that when we look at the urban transformation that has been talked about since USMH was first created. The word, as a matter of fact, we use it with our fundraiser, is a renaissance. I'm not here tonight to take credit for anything other than one very simple contributor toward an urban renaissance. But in order to affect that renaissance, we're going to have to do things that are helpful for and supportive of the educational institution we have downtown. So with those, I thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Dr.
Thank you,
Halsey.
Mark? Did I understand Central Lot is free for students?
Parking is free
In the evening.
before 9 a.m. and after 5 o'clock, and Saturday and Sundays on the street and in the weekdays. So
But
if a
not-
student has a night class, they literally could pay nothing for parking if they parked on the street or
Right.
parked in a lot.
Right.
It's not just the central lot, any of our parking lots.
During the evening, right, but
During
not
the
during
evening,
the day.
that's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I understood that.
The parking decks are $2 for the entire evening.
Right.
I just want to summarize in response to the comments that I expected that we receive on this issue to reconsider the parking rate adjustments that we put into effect. This is just a summary of an email that I sent to Mayor and Council about 2 weeks ago, which, at least for my thoughts, summed it up a little better than I could off the cuff here. But the fact is, what will happen among the various parties, the other parties, a question why we've now decided for political reasons why some will continue to get a deal and others don't. This is before the UIP is even up and running, and we're staring down the substantial cost of a new third deck we all seem to agree is needed, but haven't determined how to fund. I would remind folks that some time ago, we invited Ron Young, the former mayor of Frederick, credited there largely with ushering in their renaissance, to come up and speak before the Greater Hagerstown Committee. I'm not sure who was at that. It was some years ago. And the comments that he made when he was invited to that venue about downtown. And he stressed very pointedly in his comments, all need to pay for parking in order for the fund to be solvent in building all the parking it takes to achieve this revitalization. Those were his comments at that time. There are many other ways to provide incentives, but you need to explain to those opposed to paying for parking the necessary reason and purpose behind it. Now Frederick is blessed with many decks, a solvent fund, a thriving downtown, arguably in part because of this convenience that everyone now simply accepts. Hagerstown has about 1 million square feet of empty building space downtown. Again, this is even without the UIP being completed. And without the parking and the ability to adequately fund it, these buildings will remain vacant and underutilized for both the prospects and the patrons alike.
Anybody have anything that they?
Well, I didn't think he was done. He's, yeah.
Oh, he's not done?
Are
Okay.
you done? Oh,
He's done.
I feel like we're squeezing a balloon. I personally, you know, I don't care whether we have this debate today about how it's going to kill business by raising the parking rate, or we have a debate in May when we raise the taxes to cover the deficit in the parking fund, and hear how raising taxes is going to kill business and kill everything. I have no problems rolling these things back. I would love Eric to discuss with the folks. I would love to hear it. We have $100,000 to the right side in parking.
Yeah, it's somewhere in there.
Actually, with the changes, it's more around 73. Yeah.
Okay,
If we would have utilized the changes.
No, if we don't utilize any changes at all.
104.
No.
Yeah.
Parking is self-sustaining at this point, yes,
So self-sustaining at this point.
correct.
For
So the-
operations and maintenance.
For operations and maintenance, yes.
Okay.
And the cash balance is,
The cash balance at the moment, somewhere around $1.1
But
million.
when we talk about operations and maintenance, what is it that we're not including then? Does that include everything we have to include when we talk about the expenses of our parking?
Yeah, but it doesn't include any future CIPs or projects such as the $300,000 we spent 4 years ago on the university deck, or the $280,000 we're spending right now for the new equipment. Those are coming out because we bond funded, finance some of those projects.
Okay, so there are parking expenses that you're not including as an expense. Is that what I'm hearing? Or are you including that as an expense over the life of the bond?
yeah, it's an expense under the principal payment on the current long-term debt.
You contribute back a proportionate amount of the percentage of the debt service.
Okay, well, you know, my thought process are a couple of things. One, on one hand, I certainly appreciate what Kristen has said, except where I would take some questioning is when he says that everyone knows we need a third deck. Everyone but the parking study we did. And I hate to spend a lot of money on a parking study and get it back and then say, well, I'm glad we did this, now we can throw it in the trash can because I don't agree with it. And that parking study clearly said that we have adequate parking right now and that we don't need another deck.
The parking study of which year?
2012, I assume is what you're.
Yes. that is
Because the
correct.
one that was done with the city and the Chamber of Commerce, when we were considering the Board of Ed downtown in 2009, clearly indicated a deficiency. 2 years later, we did another study associated with the ball stadium that said we didn't. So, I mean, there's different studies that occur different periods of time associated with different perspectives of which projects that they are attuned to.
And I understand that. I also understand a couple of other things. One, this is not a real good time to do this. Two, I would like to think a parking deck is going to be partially funded with private investment. And three, when the time comes from a parking deck, we'll find out. It's interesting when I hear supply and demand. You go to district court, they have no problems getting $3 an hour with unlimited, no limit on it at all because of its location. And I will look at everybody back there and say, I have no problems with rolling these things back to where they are right now and having longer and later discussions. What I would say to you, Doctor, is I get a violin out when I hear about what College Park and Towson are charging. I like to know how far those students are walking, because I can think we could probably supply a really inexpensive parking if students want to walk as far as they had to from where they live and a dormitory to everywhere they have to walk on the college campus. I mean, they're parking. I wish I could have gotten parking as close to where these students park when I went to school. Having said that, I want you to know I'm not arguing that we should keep these things. I think this is bad timing. I think that Austin has said in the past, and very appropriately, that we have done some things without adequate public input and discussions with those affected. I think there does have to be a change in parking rates at some stage in some amount. If I had my druthers, and given that I was one who voted for this, so I would have to be one to make the motion to reconsider, I would certainly do that. And I would vote to roll these things back to where they were with no rate changes at all, and entertain some discussions with the affected people, sit down, talk about where we are with parking with both the university and our users of these properties, and see where we can come up to some semblance of intelligence about this and figure out where we are. With the university, I would really love to figure out how we could somehow delineate those day students out from those night students. Because I hate the thought of giving extremely reduced parking passes to a student just because they're a student, and find out that they're doing nothing but taking night classes and have no parking expense to think of at all, but they get a greatly reduced rate for parking when the object is to provide that parking when they're at school. I don't know if that's possible, but I certainly, like I say, I would make that motion to reconsider.
I think it's important to note a bit greater historical reference. When we proposed the A&E deck some years back, it was amazing the number of people that came out and said, "You're crazy for building that. You know, it's not needed. You're crazy for building that. You know, you can't fill up the first deck. What are you doing building the second one?" And so we built it smaller than what envisioned, and we built it to what we could afford at the time. I think it was like $3 million, and we partnered to do so. And we had guarantees from folks to say, you know, we'll take some spaces. Now we over permit that deck. It's over permitted, meaning there's what?
There's 185 spaces, and there's been times we've sold over 200 parking permits to it.
And people come back now and they say, why didn't you build it bigger? You know, as the hindsight 2020 approach, why didn't you build it bigger? Because now it doesn't hold enough. And to put that in perspective of this third deck, a couple of things I've said very publicly is, one, I think we're years behind the planning that was necessary to already be in position to do that. When we open up the UIP, when that full project is done and there is no third deck, we will immediately be at a parking deficit. That, I firmly believe that. I think we're 18 months behind that planning process right now. And when I talk to folks from groups like Greater Hagerstown, you know, over the past year, and I say, hey, we're looking at building a 400 space deck there. That's about $6 million, I believe. That's what we can afford. And they say, no, you got to build 650 spaces. That's $8.25 million. And we're going to roll back a process where we're not even going to have ourselves positioned to do that and what I feel is 18 to 24 months later than we should be doing it at this point, let alone the folks that are already in the hindsight 2020 mode of thinking of you're not going to be doing it big enough. And in that same instance, we have taken actions to remove some of the very coveted parking that was left around there. I remember when I had jury duty, and they're like, "Hey, go over in the church lot," and that's full in the morning. They said, "Well, just park on that gravel lot next to Harold Mail." Well, that's no longer available. That's where the trail is now. And in every instance, we sort of pick apart these places where people squeeze in, and then we open up this $40 million project, and we go, okay, well, where are these 1,000 new people going to be parking on that regular basis? I think that is a completely faulty thought process in that action, and we got buildings right around the corner that are looking to be bought, whether it's this at the Roslyn, or whether it's the project underway or going to kick off for the old Massey building, or the project that Mr. Bowen's doing. I mean, I think that 18 months from now, if that transformation occurs and we're not well on our way to that third deck, and we won't be because of financial decisions we make right now, we will be at a deficiency, and it will be that hindsight 2020 perspective all over again. And I think then you lose that opportunity to have that infrastructure in place at a point when it's needed for that development that occurs.
Just looking a little bit more short-term than that, I think that, and I don't know what the right number is, but the parking fund, I won't call it a profit. It's not working at a profit. We're saving some retained earnings as a reserve for future maintenance and for breakdowns of software and equipment and that kind of thing. So I don't know what the right number is, what that right profit figure is that we need to have yearly. But we do have to have a reserve. I don't want to see us get into a situation where we have to float bonds when we have a massive software failure in the parking deck hardware and software again. And so we can't operate at a break even. We have to operate at some kind of profit level and save that as a reserve for future maintenance. I don't know what that level is, and I don't know what that does to the parking rates for the University of Maryland, for Middletown. What's the right figure there? I was encouraged that we had been able to come back with a compromise, but obviously it's not to everyone's liking. So we'll have to look further at that. But I think at the end of the day, I don't want to throw another monkey on the back of the taxpayers when that software breaks, and when the hardware breaks, and when the structural crack appears in the parking deck. I think we've got to have a reserve fund to be able to deal with that, as with any other business or any other entity or university or anything else. You can't run at a break-even basis.
I have a question. Do you know how many parking passes have been sold already? I mean, I know students are coming back, but you're estimating about 100. Any idea how many we've sold already? I'm just.
For students?
Yeah.
Because they're paying the same rate as everybody else right now, it's a little harder to tell.
Okay.
But we've been selling permits to students beginning last week.
Yeah.
And certainly more this week.
So I just have
But I don't have an exact number.
Okay, I was just
Yeah.
curious. Just two comments then. If we are going to do what Lou had suggested and reopen this and have other conversations, then I think the conversations going forward need to put the schools on a level playing field, because while USMH is clearly a huge part of our downtown and a very important part of our downtown. They're also not the only school. And every school, there's a Ward Beauty School, there's BISFA, so I think if we're gonna look at this going forward, that everyone should be on the same, paying the same rate, or at least looking at it that way, because how is it fair if a student there is paying one rate and a student at Barbara Ingram is paying a different rate? And so I think if we're going to reopen that conversation, that needs to be a conversation across the board. And my second comment is, do you have any comments? Because you just sat here and listened. I know you have a lot of comments, but you just sat here and listened to their argument, if you will, and ours, so I'm just curious if.
I came here mainly tonight to hear what was obviously there was a compromise proposed, and I assumed that was hoping it would go through. The information was presented to council in January, early January. When the two new council members came on board, I think I sent you the documents probably in early February. It was discussed at more length in early May. The parking rates that I proposed were passed by resolution at the end of June, and that's currently what's in place. Obviously, there's some users of the deck, as we know, that are not happy with that. Basically what I asked council to do was level the playing field for everybody. Everybody would pay the same rate. There would be no more price breaks. The bulk rate that's been discussed tonight was implemented in 1996, about 31 years ago. And at that time, I argued that maybe it was time to move past that. The student rates came to be, and there's been a ton of information discussed amongst us through personal conversations or emails, so I can't go through all that. That would take hours. But the bottom line for the students is that the parking deck serves more than just the University System of Maryland. It serves the citizens of Hagerstown, it serves visitors, it serves staff. So comparing that rate as a direct apples-to-apples comparison to other campuses, it simply isn't fair. Those other campuses, it's their parking on their lot that they're charging the students. We're charging everybody that comes in the deck the same amount, or at least now that's what we're doing. The $40 a semester rate that was for the students basically equates to about $2.75 a week is what they're paying for parking. I don't see how that's fair to anybody else that's using parking. The entities that Councilman Hollshire mentioned before about the A&E deck, there was two main entities when that deck was coming on board that was going to buy a lot of parking passes. One of those entities don't even exist anymore, and the other has 9 passes, or 9 permits. Ward Beauty School, in honesty, basically saved that deck because they buy 80, 90 parking permits. It's one of the reasons I put in a weekly report the occupancy, because it's not just about how many permits we sell, but we have to watch how the occupancy is being used. Because we can't tell when somebody's paying $40 a semester and somebody's paying $60 a month. Exactly, we can't just use the numbers of how many permits are being sold. That's why we watch the occupancy. But if it wouldn't have been for Ward Beauty School, honestly, for A&E, parking would be in serious trouble. And they weren't even on board. That wasn't one of the entities that was part of the conversation, is my understanding at that time.
And if I also recall during that time, when we were getting ready to fund that, there were 2 things happening. One, we were coming up on election time. And number 2, we were in budget deliberations. And we heard very clearly, and I think this speaks to the point that Lou made about the taxpayers, we heard very clearly from the taxpayers at that time, we don't want this to be another subsidized item within the general fund. And the equation we came up with, and that I proffered as a compromise at that time, was no more than 35% of the debt service could be funded through the general fund. And I think we've met that goal through that process, but that was one of the conditions of that approval that got the majority of council to support it.
Okay. All I asked in that, and what we passed, or what you passed, was basically everybody pays the same. As far as timing, the bulk rates would not disappear until 2019, well, 10 months now. But at the time it was passed, it was a year into the future. Can that be adjusted? Sure. I mean, we can still work with that. I feel. I'm not against that. I'm not, actually,
No, I
everybody's
understand, Eric, you need funding, whether it's funding through parking increases or funding through general fund, when,
Right.
like everything else, when it gets broken, it's gonna get fixed, no
Right.
matter who pays
And
for
for the
it.
benefit of the audience and for the ones behind me, or watching, again, as Councilman Heffernan had noted, it is a utility. The parking fund is not supported by tax dollars. It's an enterprise fund, so it's supported by the users.
Right.
So I'm sure residents of Hagerstown, if they've never parked downtown, have never supported parking. It doesn't come out of their taxes, it's by the users. So it's only those that are using the parking system that has to.
Having said that,
Yep.
having said that, discussion about reduced bulk rates for businesses or other organizations downtown, or the need for a new parking deck downtown, I agree with everything that's been said about it being an enterprise fund, but I also believe that when push comes to shove, it's also an economic development fund. And to expect that the parking fund itself is going to achieve this goal takes away the whole concept of economic development, and might I underline and boldface economic retention, especially when we change the rules on businesses after they've committed to come here. I know how much money, when a new business wants to come to town, that everybody is willing to get the checkbooks out and write to get them here. And I think we need to be very cautious about that. The reality of what we might be discussing is getting the checkbooks out for retention, on whatever method that means. And what it doesn't mean is that you aren't going to have the funds that you need to do whatever you need to do with. It's just a matter of the source of them. I hear what you say about the weekly expense for parking for students. I think that's, yeah, I think university system has to understand there's got to be an increase. Whether the increase that you've been shown is the appropriate one is very debatable. And that's no reflection on your proposal, Eric. Your proposal is eminently reasonable to reasonable people, and their discussions are eminently reasonable to reasonable people. So what we got to do is sit down and figure out what we need to do to retain and to attract. As we all know, when we discussed had discussions with some other entities about either buying or moving somewhere, many times it's come up, well, we want 40 free parking spots. And we all discuss how much money that is. So I think we do need to revisit this. I think we need to have more discussions with these folks and come up with things that are tenable for everybody. And I think we can do that because what I'm hearing is right now there's not an emergency. I understand the needs to make sure we have a reserve fund. I fully understand that. And I fully understand if we don't get this money this way, that we'll be having discussions in May with people complaining about what we're doing with the tax rates because we're going to have to get the money that way.
Shelley, anything from you?
As I voted earlier, I didn't think that it was the appropriate time to raise the rates, and I still stand by that. I think that we're never going to make everybody happy, but I think that there is definitely room for discussion to make sure we understand completely, from a business perspective, and you understand from the city's perspective. And I'm really thankful that we're having this conversation. So I still stand by the fact that I just think that it's not the right time. So
I'm only going to say one last thing, and then we're going to move on because we have a 7 o'clock regular session. Over the last 3 fiscal years, we've added roughly $500,000 to the parking fund, to our cash balance. Okay, that's given numbers out of the projections. So I believe that we'll end up adding some this year. Also, again, even if the rates return to where they were, if that ever is the decision of this council. I understand what Kristen says. I fully support a third parking deck, and I believe he's right, and I believe he's not right only because of the UIP and other things that are happening downtown, but I also know that if we don't have one, you will not get redevelopment on Summit Avenue. You're not going to get it in the first block of Jonathan. You're not going to get it in the second block of West Washington Street. So I do believe there is a need for a third deck. Having said that, I believe that if this council wishes, we can have a work session and discuss again about what do we do with these rates and what do we finalize on for this year and at least for the next next 3 or 4 years. Is that what you guys want to do?
That's what I'd like to do.
Yes.
So I need a little bit of clarification
Okay.
on that. Are we leaving this resolution in place and the current rates in place?
Or are we doing something with the legislation?
Well, I believe we'll have to leave the current rates in place until we amend that resolution.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So at
We
this,
don't have a choice, do we?
Which are the
I mean, we
new
have-
rates?
yeah, the new
Right,
rates.
which are the new rates, right.
But I just want to be clear that you're not expecting a motion in
No.
the September meeting to rescind the current and put us back to the,
I would
We
be-
may by the end of September, I don't know, but not at this point in
Okay.
time.
But I would be expecting that kind of a
I
motion.
thought that was how your
Yeah, I'd
comments
be
were.
expecting that kind of a motion
So I
in
need,
September.
we need to know what to put on the agendas then.
Sure.
Yeah, I would be expecting that, and I think you probably have 3 votes for it.
Well, I don't think Shelley and I can make that motion because we
No,
voted.
no,
you
but I
cannot.
can.
Voted against
I
it.
can, and I said I would.
Only the council
Right, and I
members who
voted for it,
voted
and
for
that's
it
why I
can make a
indicated.
motion and/or second. Then it can be opened up to everyone for discussion, and then opened up to everyone for vote.
So I guess the question is, there's gonna be a motion maker. Does anybody know that they will not second it right now? I'm
That's-
assuming
I need to
Kristen
know
won't
whether
second
it's
it. I
on
don't
the
know about
agenda.
Austin.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get it on then.
So
Okay?
we're gonna have a first and a second, and what
And
we'll
the
do,
plan is to rescind
I think
the,
that's the easiest way to do it, is just to rescind and take an entire look at this thing.
Eric, can you recalculate your numbers by next Tuesday to sit down and see where we'll be at
There's no meeting
there's no
next
meeting
Tuesday,
next
but
week. but
for the 11th then?
for that, and recalculate them what?
Go back to where the numbers were before.
Well, if we
this.
rescind, it's right where it was.
Yeah, if you
I know,
rescind
but
this,
don't you wanna see what the numbers look like before we totally go back to where we were before we adopted these numbers?
We have that chart somewhere. I feel like Eric's done that.
I thought we just got told we were like $70,000.
It was it would be the chart I provided in
Yeah.
January,
Yeah.
The original chart.
before anything would change. I can change it, sure.
No, the 70, Lou, still kept the increase for the University of Maryland and kept the increase for other things, so.
What I would really like to do is just have more discussions with the folks that we heard from tonight. That's who I really want to hear from. Because I don't think any of them,
You wanna do that in a work session setting? We can do that.
that's fine with me. I look at you folks and my belief is that none of you are looking at us saying any increase is absolutely unacceptable. I think what I'm hearing is, get us in the game, let us hear what your problems are, you hear what our problems are, let's discuss what everybody can afford to do realistically, and look at alternatives. And that's what I would like to do. I know where we are financially. If there weren't folks back there, I wouldn't have an issue, but there are folks back there, they're who I want to hear from myself.
So we'll have a work session on the 11th, and we'll be discussing parking rates. Understand? Great.
Talking with them or talking with me?
Talking with you too, you're in charge of the parking fund.
All right.
We love you, Eric.
So when people come in between now and whatever changes you make, you're going to charge them with the current rate structure?
Because we haven't changed the resolution.
Have to,
Yeah.
you don't have a choice.
And you just have to issue like rebates?
No, it
no,
won't.
because
No.
we could
You
make
have to
it
issue
as of the
rebates.
date it's effective. We do not
Exactly.
have to go retroactive, and I would
Exactly.
not recommend
Well, I
doing
would not
anything
recommend that.
retroactive.
No. Everybody can live with a month or two.
Now I'm
of this.
confused. So the people that paid in this window of time,
They would have paid, say they paid for 1 month at that rate, once the resolution is changed, however it's changed, whatever date that is, they'll pay that new rate.
We bill in advance, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, I was-
We're
yeah,
gonna
but-
bill in September for October.
Yeah.
Right.
October, and so on and so forth.
We'll get this done as fast
And there's
as we
some
can get it
people
done.
that pay 6 months in advance.
No, if there's
We've
something
had
like
some
that that
students that have
happens,
already
That's
paid.
what I'm
Well,
curious
well,
about.
well,
Somebody
that-
comes in and
that-
cuts you a check for the whole 240.
Then they're gonna have to get a refund for that difference.
correct,
That-
whatever
that's
date
clear
the change
because-
happens, right.
But it's not gonna be retroactive.
But not a
So Mark, tell your
retroactive.
students, don't come in and pay for 6 months, okay? Because nothing in the business community is changing until 19,
Right, right.
so, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. You guys okay to move into the regular session? All right, we'll call the 50th regular session of the Mayor and City Council to order. Invocation to be given by Councilmember Austin Heffernan, and we'll do the pledge of the flag. If you can please stand and join us.
Will you please bow your heads as I pray? Lord, thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the health and sustenance we need to fulfill our calling, and for the ability and honor to be involved in useful work this evening. Through the scriptures, you've commanded the citizens obey the governing authorities, since you've established those authorities to promote peace, order, and justice. Therefore, I pray for our mayor, for our city officials, and in particular for this assembled council. I ask that you graciously grant us the wisdom to govern amid conflicting interests, issues, and disagreements, the intuition to understand the true underlying needs of our city, the foresight to recognize the impact of our actions upon the future, and the confidence to make decisions to maximize the welfare of our citizens. We ask for your presence and guidance this evening, and we ask for your continued blessings upon our city. In your most blessed name we pray, amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag Thank you. We were operating under the rules of procedure adopted by this administration on December 20th of 2016. If you have a cell phone, please mute it. Any correspondence or distribution to elected officials should be provided to the city clerk. It should include a copy for the city clerk for inclusion in the official record. Meeting dates in September. There is no meeting on the 4th. September 11th is a work session at 4 p.m. September 13th is a goal-setting session at 10 a.m. at the Washington County Library. September 18th is a work session at 4 p.m. And September 25th, 2018 is a regular session at 7 p.m. We have some appointments this evening. The City Ethics Commission is Charles T. Tom Brown, Senior, term to expire September 1st, 2023. Can I get a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Citizen comments, Elizabeth Paul. Yep, right there, name and address.
Hi, most of you know me. I'm Elizabeth Paul. I'm running for Washington County Commissioner, and I just wanted to come and officially introduce myself here tonight. I'm happy to meet with any of you at any time, or if you have any questions for me, please do reach out. I grew up in the southern part of the county, lived other places, came back here about 16 years ago. I feel like we can do better in Washington County, and I'm hoping to be part of making that change come November. I believe in transparency in government, ethical leadership, and I would like to see the county government working more closely with the city government. I think there's a lot of opportunities where we could work well together. There's some pretty big issues facing the county, as you guys know, fire and rescue, education, to name two of them, and I'd like to see us all trying to work together. Again, thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Elizabeth was the only person who was signed up. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Please step up, give us your name and address.
I'm Marvin Lohr, 1135 Sunnyside Drive. And I want to speak to you about I got this following code thing from the police department at 305 South Potomac Street, one of my properties. And says they classify as a qualifying call per Hagerstown City Code 95, excessive use of city services. Now, they got names of two people here. I had to go to the police department to find out who in the heck they are. I asked the tenant at the place, he knows nothing about the incident. One of the people lives a block and a half away, and another one's a homeless person. So I don't know why you're sending me this thing. It doesn't tell me if they were on the back of the property, on the sidewalk, on the side of the building, or anything. So I just, and then, what's it, one of three things you send me that, you know, for some sort of fine.
No, I didn't send it to you, Marvin.
I know you didn't.
Okay,
But guess what?
And I don't know.
I went to the police
I
department.
don't know the particulars behind the incident, so
Yeah, I
couldn't
went to
tell
the
you.
police department. I couldn't get the particulars. They didn't know.
Who signed that letter of violation?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Well, usually excessive use of services denotes more than one call.
No, this is one call. And I can't find out anything about it. And I say, I got a homeless person's name on this thing, and I got a person that's a block and a half away. So if somebody has an argument out in the middle of the street, do I get dinged on that?
No.
I would,
I'm gonna
I
defer
would
to
offer
Chief.
that you get with the police department
I have,
again.
and got nowhere.
Again, and find out exactly what the incident was that happened at 3. I mean, is there a time or a date of the incident?
8/22 at 1644.
So they can look up what happened on
They
August
did
27th.
for me. They said there wasn't much on the incident report they could tell me. And well, I got this one, also got a thing from the code department for 305. And last year I got them for 119 and 115 on Potomac Street. And by code, but for the code for trash and grass on the sidewalk. I go there, I can't find any grass on the sidewalk. Now, trash, they could find because you guys don't enforce your trash codes, and every time the wind blows, it comes around it to everywhere. I've gotten mail envelopes from 3 or 4 blocks away.
Could you get a copy, Donna, can we get a copy of that?
I don't have the copy for the
Well,
trash.
you have the original, right?
I have for the police thing, but
Right, for the police
not for
department,
the
yeah.
code
Can we get a
department.
copy of that?
The code department has it.
Okay, please do, Joey. Thank you.
And while I'm here, you know, for 45 years, downtown's been kind of spiraling down. I bought property up here a little over 19 years ago, and I put a lot of money in this town. I got over $1 million invested here. And I've seen so many stores leave, and you got so many vacant stores. So one of the biggest things going on now is robotics. Why can't you get these students in these robotic clubs and things they have at school, try to get working with the owners of these buildings and put robotic displays in, something that moves. You know, I don't care if it's like a Rube Goldberg thing, but something that catches your eye. And maybe that would draw people to come down to look at them. It's something to see. And then maybe if you get enough people walking down here, the restaurant business will pick up. And maybe if the restaurant business picks up, maybe some stores will start opening up.
and it doesn't cost you guys a nickel. And you spend millions of dollars and hadn't had much success drawing people downtown. The only successes you've had lately is the University of Maryland. And I'm glad to see the Maryland Theater being spruced up. But it's so many vacant stores and derelict stores down here. And I would really like to know why the trash code is not enforced. Can you tell me that?
Why the trash code is not enforced?
Correct.
It is enforced.
Jonathan, can we tell him why the trash code is not enforced?
It is enforced.
It is not enforced.
Or Paul, I'm sorry.
The trash code calls for cans with lids.
Because
And
we
you go
don't have
along the
the
street here, there's
manpower,
bags
we
and
don't
bags
have-
and bags of trash piled up.
Marvin, the reason we don't enforce it is because we don't have the manpower to, and we don't have the citizens that can afford to buy what we have mandated they buy. That's why.
You can start.
And we can't even identify who is putting the bags out when you have a apartment building and there's 6 different units in there. We unfortunately don't have name tags on the bags that are out to be able to find someone.
Well, once in a while, maybe you start enforcing some of them, the rest of them would come along.
But I'm
When
just
my
trying to
people,
answer your
when my
question.
tenants do that, I go through the daggone trash bag, find out who does it, because if I ask, nobody does it.
No, we don't have
So
the
I go through
manpower
the
to
trash
do that.
bags and I find out who does it.
Understood.
So, you know, you gotta get some pride in this town. That's what's really lacking, pride. I have neighbors that take care of these, islands, you know, along the streets. But then I see others overgrowing. There are a lot of people in this town would pitch in. And maybe if you get the newspaper and the TV station and the cable company to go and look and do some articles and on some of these people that try to fix their places up. And maybe they could also do articles on a derelict building and find pictures of how it used to look and, you know, maybe get some interest in this town. Because I just see it slowly just going downhill. And I don't buy this business of the trash cans. I really don't. The city, if they wanted to, they could buy them wholesale somewhere and sell them for $1 more or something to the city residents. You could start, you know, block by block and work on it. I've been coming here for almost 4 years and nothing gets done. And it
You
gets
really
worse
ought to run
every
for
day.
office. You really ought to run for office. You have a lot of great
I
ideas.
don't know if I could put up with you guys. I really don't. I have
Thank
enough
you,
trouble
Marvin.
with the tenants.
Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
All right, guys.
Anybody else? All right, seeing none, we're gonna move on. City Administrator's comments.
Nothing additional, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Alshire. Mr. Heffernan. Scholar.
Yeah, I just want to invite everyone, this Friday at City Park at 6:30 is the Washington Goes Purple kickoff. For those of you who don't know what Washington Goes Purple is, it's a substance abuse awareness campaign that is geared toward educating our kids, middle school and high school, about the dangers, specifically about prescription painkillers, and also educating their parents and our adults in the community about the importance of locking up their prescriptions and properly disposing of them. So we've met with every middle and high school principal, and we are thrilled about the community response. So our kickoff is Friday at 6:30. It's family friendly. We're gonna have a fire truck, a police car, face painting, balloons, music, and the next day is the recovery walk downtown Hagerstown. We're going to be placing purple ribbons and bows on the trees and meters, and the Hagerstown Suns are going purple that night. So obviously the education and talking to our kids about the dangers of drugs is the most important part of Washington Goes Purple, and that's going to be an all-year campaign. But for September, the purple is the color of recovery. And I know our police officers are getting purple shirts, our fire department's getting purple shirts, the ambulance service, the teachers, all middle and high school teachers got a purple shirt. The buildings will be lit purple. There's 54 rope lights downtown that'll be on. And really, that throughout this county is just a community unity effort, because like Mr. Lohr said, we need hope in this community, we need unity, and what better thing to rally behind than educating our kids to make better choices, so 10, 15, 20 years from now, we're not having the same Baltimore Magazine articles written about us, and we can start making progress. So I think it's an awesome thing, and I really appreciate staff's help. Rodney Tissue and Mark Haddock in our Parks and Rec have just been awesome to work with, and Eric Dykey and his team, they helped us install the rope lights. Valerie and everyone else that purchased T-shirts and has been involved. I'm humbled by the support, and everything has been a lot easier than I anticipated it would be. So I appreciate the team coming together, and I would love to see the whole community come out on Friday.
Geez, I gotta get some purple stuff then.
Yes, you do. I'm probably going to get kicked out of my neighborhood when I turn all the lights I hung up purple, but.
Mayor, just while they say all politics are local, every once in a while all politics are national, and I think on behalf of the entire city of Hagerstown, we extend our condolences to the family of John McCain, an American hero, and that's all.
Thank you. Charlotte?
Last week, I attended with Jill Thompson the Community Coalition meeting, and I was asked to bring back the agenda to kind of let you guys know a little bit about where they are. Their next meeting is on the 19th, and they plan to do the same things as they did in the past, but they're now currently in the brainstorming process. So they want to pare down the agenda in October. So some of the highlights that they discussed was the transportation, which was the same two issues of I-81 and 70 with the Maryland 65 interchange improvements. Of course, towards the city side, they're going to continue promoting the UIP downtown, which is the main item for us. They want to protect the funding pledged by the governor. In the tourism section, Dan Spedden brought up a possible item involving the creation of a new state park. And HCC is actually going to be more active in the coalition this year and is looking at asking for a pilot program to help students and underemployed adults get some vocational training and career certification in multiple industries. So if we can make sure that we are thinking about, as a council, kind of the things to make sure things are on the agenda. They're still open for new items that they want considered, but it's a fluid agenda. However, they want to kind of, make sure that we're all on the same page. Hopefully nothing big pops up. So maybe adding something to our goal setting would be appropriate to continue the discussion. So in the meantime, that is your homework. I did my homework. That is your homework. That's it.
I don't have anything to add, so we're going to move on to the adoption of the minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the approval of minutes presented from the mayor in council meetings held on June 5, June 19, and June 26, 2018.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, hereby move that all the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Approval of a deed to convey land at 50 East Baltimore Street.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move to approve an ordinance for staff to execute a deed conveying 0.053 acres of property known as 50 East Baltimore Street to Jack L. Holden II and Kristen G. Holden, adjoining property owners at 52 East Baltimore Street. The land is no longer needed for a public purpose.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Introduction of an ordinance amending Chapter 197 rental facilities.
Mr. Mayor, I move the mayor and city council to introduce an ordinance to amend the code of the city of Hagerstown, Chapter 197 rental facilities by repealing and reenacting Chapter 197 in its entirety With this ordinance, the present code provisions will be effective through June 30, 2019, and the present code provisions plus the following amendments will become effective on July 1, 2019. Number 1, add dormitory to the definition of rental unit. Number 2, establish a definition for a safety inspection. Number 3, establish license fees for dormitory of $100 plus $10 per room. Number 4, establish inspection schedule for dormitory as interior inspection every 48 months. Number 5, revise inspection schedule to include rental units that have never been inspected and a tenant turnover has occurred at the property. The inspection shall be a safety inspection if occupied and an interior inspection if vacant. Number 6, add exemption for existing units renovated to partners in economic program standards for 48 months following issuance of UNO permit. Number 7, establish transfer of license notification requirement and a fee for failure to make the department aware of transfers. Number 8, revise the revocation language to be consistently applied to all rental properties using a point system calculating the standing of a rental facility. Number 9, require any rental facility licensed revoked shall be vacated within 60 days of the license revocation. Number 10, authorize the ability to collect unpaid license fees by adding license fees to the tax bill through the tax lien process. These amendments are consistent with the city's vision and commitment for housing in neighborhoods and the community's city center plan.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, do we, in the definition of safety inspection, did we take out the vague, I can't remember the terminology now and I can't find it. It was the last one, inhabitability, wasn't that it?
Oh, habitability.
Yeah. Was that taken out? Yes?
Paul says yes, it was.
Okay.
That's through the policy that we updated it. It included like not having a kitchen, not having a bathroom.
Okay,
like
so,
stuff
but it
through
was
the policy.
specific, okay.
Because the way it's done is that the safety inspection definition is what's adopted by policy by the mayor and council, so it's easier to amend if there's changes that need to be made.
Thank you. And second, for the
Paul, don't go away.
inspection of homes that are inhabited but have a lease agreement through prior to this program starting, is that in here?
It's in the ordinance, yes. Same with, we'll set the Section 8 annual inspection in lieu of the safety inspection.
Okay, I guess I didn't see it. Okay, thanks. I didn't see it. Did you?
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Introduction of an ordinance authorizing the sale of property located at 1725 East Franklin Street.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for mayor and city council to introduce an ordinance authorizing the sale of city-owned property located at 17-25 East Franklin Street to WLR Holding Company Incorporated for the sum of $250,000. The sale will provide the opportunity for approximately $850,000 of private investment to create professional office space and residential units. The sale will be in accordance with all terms and conditions outlined in the attached purchase agreement.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Approval of an ordinance amending Chapter 33 Code of Ethics.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move for the mayor and council to approve an ordinance to amend Chapter 33 Code of Ethics of the City Code by repealing and reenacting portions of Chapter 33 to add or amend certain provisions required by state law. The sections being repealed and reenacted are Section 33-3 Prohibited Acts, Section 33-3.1 Financial Disclosure, Elected Officials, and Section 33-4 Financial Disclosure Employees and Appointed Officials.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Approval of resolution, adopt 2017 Washington County Hazard Mitigation Plan as a city plan.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for mayor and city council to approve the attached resolution to adopt the 2017 Washington County Hazard Mitigation Plan as the city of Hagerstown's plan. City staff participated in development of the plan to ensure city data was updated and hazards evaluated and prioritized. It is understood that the next update to the county hazard mitigation plan should include the mayor and council's prioritization regarding the opioid crisis. Inclusion of the city in the 2017 County Hazard Mitigation Plan makes the city eligible for grant funding to assist with pre-hazard mitigation projects and hazard event response and recovery.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of resolution, Neighborhood Business Works Program loan request for Schmenkel Stube project.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move the mayor and city council adopt a resolution indicating support for the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development's Neighborhood Business Works Program to finance a loan in the amount of $500,000 to UCMS Inc., 58 South Potomac Street, Limited Liability Corporation. This loan will allow corporation to finance a portion of the Schmeichel Stube expansion project.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval resolution amendment to residential lease agreement for 38 North Potomac Street, Unit 2.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move that the mayor and city council approve the attached resolution authorizing the amendment to a residential lease agreement with Amanda Fairchild for a portion of the city of Hagerstown property located at 38 North Potomac Street in Hagerstown, Maryland, known as the Studios on NOPO. The amended lease will be between the city of Hagerstown and Amanda Fairchild and will remove Alice Laxton as a tenant.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Renew a memorandum of understanding between the City of Hagerstown and U.S. Marshal Service Violent Offender Task Force.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for mayor and council approval to renew a memorandum of understanding with the U.S. Marshal Service Violent Offender Task Force. This program carries no cost to the city, and overtime and other expenses will be reimbursed by the federal government of the United States.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of an after-school program at the Parkside Community Center.
Mr. Mayor, I move the mayor and council approval for funding of the after-school program at Parkside Community Center. The Hagerstown Housing Authority provides a variety of constructed after-school programs to area youth. This program runs for the 2018-2019 school year at a cost of $18,881.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approve after-school program, BTJ Dance Group.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for mayor and council approval for funding of the BTJ Dance Group after-school program that is held at the Suman Avenue Community Building. The HHA provides a variety of constructive after-school programs to area youth. This program runs for the 2018-2019 school year at a cost of $3,500.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Approval of a change order for pavement preservation program.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move for the approval of additional work change orders for the 2018 pavement preservation program as follows. $108,488 to pavement contract 18 double P09 C. William Hetzer for paving various streets where gas mains were recently installed, funded in full by Columbia Gas. $12,214 to pavement markings contract 18 PM02 Mid-Atlantic Marking for marking those same streets, funded again in full by Columbia Gas. And $30,000 for paving parking lot in Fire Training Center, funded by CIP 241.
Second.
Discussion?
Citizens should be very happy to find out that those roads are being paved, and even happier to find out Columbia Gas is paying for it.
Question about CIP 241, funding for that, is that county funding?
No.
No? Okay.
Anything else?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That is it. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, and we're adjourned.